It's not slowing down. Captain Nura Vance gripped the edge of the console as the image came into focus, an obsidian shape cutting through the clouds over Europa Station. The thing was huge, a mountain of black alloy that ate radar signals and reflected no light. It didn't drift like a ship. It glided, silent, deliberate, unstoppable. The alarms had been screaming for 13 minutes before anyone understood what they were looking at. At first, the sensors called it a storm. Dense matter, no emissions. Then it moved against Jupiter's wind belts, climbing higher, straight toward the orbital ring. No transmissions, no codes, no insignia, just a black ship, ancient and cold, drifting toward humanity's busiest port. They scrambled ships immediately. Fighters, patrols, everything the fleet had in orbit. The order from command was simple and desperate. Intercept, contain, identify. No one expected it to answer. No one expected it to stop either. But when the first squadron approached within 200 kilometers, the void rippled. A pulse spread out, invisible but heavy enough to make every pilot's teeth ache. Comms died. Engines sputtered. The ships drifted like toys in a tide they couldn't fight. And then, just as every screen went dark, one message came through. "We come to speak to the makers of the signal." That voice didn't sound alien. It didn't sound like anything that belonged in space at all. It sounded human. 3 days earlier, humanity had sent out a call, a test signal, a pulse meant to reach interstellar distances. The scientists on Europa Station called it Project Aeon, an attempt to trace the faint whispers found in ancient star maps. They believed they had found proof that someone, had visited Earth thousands of years ago. They wanted to ask if we were alone. Now, the answer had come. When the black ship stopped just beyond Europa's orbit, silence settled across the solar system. Newsfeeds ran nonstop. People prayed. Others built bunkers. The old Earth religion saw signs and omens. But the fleet held its line. Admiral Chen stood before the hollow map, jaw set, voice calm. "We don't blink first," he said. "If they came to talk, they'll talk. If they came for war, they'll learn what we've built." He wasn't wrong. Humanity wasn't the child species anymore. We had cities under alien suns. We'd burned moons to glass. We had built the kind of weapons that could crack planets. But none of that stopped the chill running through every soldier's blood when the black ship opened its hull. It wasn't a weapon. Not at first glance. The panels split soundlessly, revealing what looked like a cathedral built from starlight and shadows. Columns of light moved within, bending geometry, folding space like origami. At the center, a single figure emerged, a silhouette outlined in white. She was tall, human-shaped, wrapped in something like liquid glass. Every scanner screamed biological. Every sensor failed to get a reading. She stepped out into the void unprotected, walking across space as though gravity were just an idea. And when she spoke, every receiver across the system picked it up. Every comm, every radio, every implant, "You called us," we answered. But the makers are gone. The world froze. In mission control, scientists shouted over each other, trying to translate, analyze, understand. The words were perfect English, but the meaning twisted deeper, older. Captain Nura whispered, "She's not talking to us. She's remembering." And then for just a moment, the lights dimmed. Europa's entire power grid flickered. When they came back online, a single line of text appeared across every display, written in an alphabet no human had seen before, until Project Aeon decoded it. Humanity inherited what was never meant to be found. That was the moment everything changed, because for all their courage, all their ships and weapons and bravado, humanity had never faced something like this, something that looked human, but wasn't, something that claimed to know our creators. And behind her, still drifting like a god's shadow, the black ship waited. Not moving, not attacking, just watching. And from that moment, across every corner of human space, a single phrase spread faster than any command, faster than any broadcast. "Here comes the black ship." No one asked for permission. No one waited to understand. Humanity just reacted. If she's human, she's from nowhere we've ever mapped. Commander Arlen Tave flicked through the scans, each line of data more impossible than the last. The figure from the black ship still stood motionless outside, her form glowing faintly against Jupiter's orange storms. No suit, no oxygen, just that eerie calm, like she'd been waiting for us to catch up. Across the solar system, the signal from her arrival looped endlessly. Every outpost, every colony, every ship replayed those words, "You called us." We answered. But the makers are gone. The message wasn't just heard, it was felt. The frequencies threaded through neural implants tickled inner ears, made people dream of cities that weren't theirs. Cities made of glass and light, dreams of hands shaping suns like clay. On Europa Station, the council convened. Generals, scientists, diplomats, every face drawn tight with fear and awe. The debate was chaos. Contact protocol says we respond peacefully. She paralyzed an entire fleet. She didn't attack, she neutralized weapons systems. She's inside our airspace. That's a hostile act. And then Dr. Imari Leth, the linguist who led Project Aeon, stood. Her voice trembled, but her eyes were steady. She's not an invader. She's an answer. We called into the void asking who made us, who sent those ancient maps. And now she's telling us our makers are gone, which means they existed. Admiral Chen's reply cut through the noise. Or she's lying. Outside, the figure moved again. Slowly, deliberately, she extended her hand toward Europa. Satellites around her began to fail, not from damage but disbelief. The data they returned didn't fit physics. Readings of mass, density, light all contradicted each other. Space seemed to bend closer to her, like reality was leaning in to listen. And then, she spoke again. Your species bears the pattern, the inheritance of the lost. You are the echo of our echo. The words came with a pulse, low, deep, resonating through bone. Across the control deck, half the staff staggered. Monitors flashed with impossible symbols, curves and lines that rearranged themselves into DNA sequences, ancient and perfect. Imari whispered, "She's showing us where we come from." But then the symbols changed. The patterns accelerated, twisting, folding into warnings, red fractal shapes repeating endlessly. They will return for what was theirs. The lights exploded. Power surged across the entire station. For a full 30 seconds, every artificial system hummed the same tone. A single note, ancient and sorrowful. When systems came back, the woman was gone, not destroyed. Not vanished. Simply no longer there. But the black ship remained, silent and unyielding, its surface rippling with faint patterns like veins beneath skin. Captain Nura stared at it from the observation deck. The human heart inside her whispered that it was alive. Not metal, not machine. Something between both, something grown, not built. Arlen joined her quietly. Command says it hasn't moved an inch. It doesn't need to, she said. It already did what it came to do. What's that? Nura turned from the window, eyes dark. It told us we're not alone, and that whoever made us, someone else owns the claim. Within a day, Project Aeon was seized by the Defense Council. Every file classified, every researcher detained. The reason was simple, the message contained coordinates. Not to where the black ship came from, but to where the makers died. Humanity, being what it always was, didn't hesitate. Before the week was out, the first expedition fleet was assembled. 50 ships led by the flagship Resolute Dawn. They didn't ask for permission. They didn't wait for the black ship to explain. They simply plotted a course to those coordinates, because that's what humans did when faced with the unknown. They went. As the engines of the Resolute Dawn roared to life, the people of Earth watched the night sky with a mix of terror and pride. The stars had always been out of reach. Now they were maps, warnings, promises, and far behind, orbiting Europa in silence, the black ship pulsed once like a heartbeat. In that flicker, it seemed to watch them leave. Inside its hull, unseen by human eyes, the woman stood before a chamber of shadow and light. They go, she said softly, as they always do. A second voice, deeper, layered with echoes, replied, then they will learn again what the makers forgot. Engage the drive. The command echoed through the Resolute Dawn's bridge as Captain Nora Vance stared into the swirling gate of light ahead. It wasn't a wormhole, not really. The coordinates given by the black ship led to something deeper, a path that folded time itself like bending paper until two distant stars touched. The fleet had never traveled this far. They called it the Deep Black, no light, no signal, no map. Just silence so thick it felt alive. 50 ships sailed into it. 50 ships carrying humanity's defiance, pride, and fear. For the first 2 days, everything was calm. Stars looked wrong, too sharp, too close. Space twisted in ways the eye couldn't trust. Then came the whispers. At first, just static. Then voices. We built you to remember. You were meant to stay. Why did you leave? Engineers thought it was interference, AI ghosts. But the linguists recognized the patterns, the same as the symbols from the Black Ship's message. It wasn't random. It was language, and it was speaking directly into their minds. Dr. Imari Leth hadn't slept since departure. Her voice recordings from those first nights would later become famous throughout human space. They're not trying to frighten us. They're grieving. The voices don't sound like warnings, they sound like regret. But no one in command wanted to hear that. To the brass, every whisper was a threat. To the scientists, it was history. To the crew, it was terror. By day 9, 5 ships had turned back. The rest pressed on. On day 11, they founded a dead star system. 3 suns collapsed into a single flickering ember, a gravitational storm where light itself bent sideways. And orbiting that dying heart was a world of black glass, the grave of the makers. The readings were madness. The planet's surface was smooth, seamless, no continents, no oceans, just a perfect sphere, scarred with cracks that glowed faintly blue. As resolute dawn descended, the crew realized the cracks weren't random. They formed letters. Words. Imari translated them aloud. We made life to escape death. Life made war. Death followed. The landing team touched down in what looked like a crater but wasn't. The ground flexed underfoot like something breathing. The air tasted of metal and ash. Structures rose from the ground. Giant pillars like ribs melted and fused together. Fossilized shapes were embedded in the surface, not bones, but machines shaped like them. Human shapes. Too close to be coincidence, Captain, Imari whispered. These aren't statues, they're failed versions. Failed humans. In the center of the ruin stood a sphere, perfectly preserved, suspended in mid-air. It pulsed with the same black light as the ship that had visited Europa. As Nura approached, her visor feed distorted. The HUD flickered, her reflection vanished, and in its place, she saw a city of light, endless and burning. Figures of brilliance walked among the stars, shaping them like clay, the makers. She saw one of them reach out and touch a sun, collapsing it into dust. Another gathered the dust, breathed into it, and a world was born. Then she saw something else. A small form, human, fragile. It reached for the same light, and the makers recoiled. Not you, they said. You are not ready. The vision shattered. Nura fell to her knees, gasping. When she opened her eyes, the sphere floated closer. It spoke not in sound but directly in thought. They feared you. They feared what they made. We sealed them away. But the pattern remained. In you. Back on the ship, instruments went wild. Energy spikes, gravitational surges, comms interference. The entire planet began to hum, a single rising tone that rattled every atom. Pull her out. Arlen shouted. Get Nura back now. But it was too late. The ground split open. A beam of black fire rose from the planet, striking the clouds. In orbit, the fleet's sensors recorded an impossible reading. The beam was transmitting, back toward the solar system. The black ship had been waiting. The resolute dawn barely escaped the surface. Behind them, the grave collapsed in on itself. Not destroyed, folded, as though it were never meant to be seen. And as they fled, the comms lit up with a single transmission. From the black ship orbiting Europa, millions of light years away. You were not invited. Then silence. Captain Nura watched the dying world shrink behind her. She didn't speak, didn't breathe. Finally, she said, We went looking for our gods. Her voice trembled, and found out we might be the reason they're dead. It's moving. The words cut through the control room like a blade. From Europa's orbit, every sensor and telescope locked on the impossible. The black ship, motionless for weeks, was changing position. Slowly, deliberately it turned, its bow facing toward the distant light of Earth. On the surface of Earth, nobody slept. Every major broadcast flickered with the same grainy image. That vast obsidian hull blotting out stars, its surface rippling like dark water under the sun. For days, people had told themselves it was just watching, just studying, a curiosity. Now it was coming home. Inside the orbiting defense array, Admiral Chen's voice was hard and tired. Every weapon trained, every reactor ready. I don't care if it's a god. If it enters low orbit without authorization, we hit it. The officers around him nodded, but no one truly believed their weapons would matter. The black ship wasn't a target. It was a force of nature. Down in the silence of Mission Deck 7, Dr. Imari Leth stood alone before a hologram of the message the fleet had sent back. The final recording from the grave of the Makers. Her voice on the transmission still echoed in her head. They feared us. They locked something away. And beneath that, in data she hadn't shown command, lay a second layer, hidden, buried in the frequencies of the transmission, something pulsing like a heartbeat. It wasn't coming from the grave. It was coming through it. A response. On the resolute dawn, still limping through deep space, Nura Vance woke from a dream she didn't remember falling into. She saw herself standing in a hall of glass, 1,000 mirrors reflecting her face, her eyes filled with starlight. A voice whispered behind her. The inheritance must choose. When she woke, her ship's sensors were screaming. Power surges, data floods, chronal distortions like reality itself was vibrating. Then the screens filled with static, and through it a face appeared, the woman from the black ship. Only now, her glass-like skin was cracked. Her expression almost sorrowful. You went where they forbade you, she said softly. You opened what was sealed. And now the signal has found its way back. Who are you? Nura whispered. I am what remains of them, the woman said. A memory, a guardian of silence. You have undone that silence. Back in Sol, power grids failed planet by planet. Mars went dark first, then the Jovian colonies. On Earth, oceans pulsed with strange tides. Magnetospheres shimmered like auroras, whispering with static that almost sounded like words. Every satellite caught the same broadcast, encoded in the pulse of the planet's own field. We made life. We failed, we buried it beneath the stars. Do not awaken us, the world trembled. Then, through the chaos, a second signal, stronger, clearer, unmistakably human. The Resolute Dawn's distress beacon. They were coming home. When their fleet re-entered Sol space, only 23 ships remained. Their hulls were scorched, their crews pale and hollow-eyed. Captain Nura stood on the deck staring at Earth, feeling the weight of what followed them, because the signal hadn't stopped. It was chasing them, bleeding through the void. Something ancient had heard humanity's call, and it was following the echo back. In the skies above, the black ship descended toward the moon, its vast form casting shadows that stretched across continents. The air itself seemed to hum. Chen gave the order. Every orbital cannon fired. Thousands of kinetic rounds screamed toward the ship. They never reached it. In a single flash, the projectiles dissolved into vapor, their atoms unmade mid-flight. The shockwave shattered satellites and fried circuits. On every screen across the system, words appeared again. You defend against memory. You cannot destroy what you were built to become. Dr. Imari stood before the council, trembling. You don't understand. The black ship isn't here to attack, it's preparing us. The Makers left something behind to destroy what they feared most. Their own creation. Us. Her voice broke. They thought they'd buried it. But when we called into the dark, we woke it up. At that same moment, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, seismic sensors recorded a pulse. Not an earthquake, not tectonic movement. A signal. Something was responding from underneath the Earth's crust. And when scientists decoded the first fragment of data, it matched the same symbols found on the grave of the Makers, a countdown. In orbit, the black ship stopped moving. It turned once more, now facing outward, toward the dark between stars, and across every communication channel, every frequency, every dream, a voice whispered, "They are coming." Sir, it's not seismic. It's symmetrical. The technician's voice cracked through the static, eyes wide on the data streaming across the hollow display. These pulses, they're forming patterns, repeating every 7 minutes. It's not natural. Admiral Chen leaned closer, his voice low. Then what the hell is it? It's answering the black ship. All across Earth, the oceans churned. The tides moved wrong, against gravity, against time. Storms bloomed from clear skies, forming perfect spirals visible from orbit. From the ruins of old telescopes to the new orbital sensors, every instrument agreed. The planet itself was speaking back. and at the bottom of the Pacific, a shape was rising. Dr. Imari Leth stood in the undersea observatory of the Pacific Arcology, hair drifting in zero-gravity gel as she watched the sonar feed. What emerged from the dark wasn't metal. It wasn't stone, it was bone. Miles of it. Colossal, rib-like structures coated in black coral and iron dust. Between them, faint blue light shimmered like veins. The readings showed energy older than the solar system itself, buried since before human civilization began. Imari whispered, "It's not alien." "It's ours." The technician stared at her. "What do you mean ours?" She touched the glass. "Our DNA. The same sequence hidden in the Maker's language. It's here. It's alive." News of the discovery spread faster than the storms. Governments fell silent. Faiths reignited. Entire populations prayed to something that might have once been their ancestor, or their executioner. The fleet stayed on alert, the black ship still silent in lunar orbit. It hadn't moved since the pulses began, but its hull glowed now, lines of deep, dark gold spreading like veins, matching the pattern forming in Earth's oceans. In the skies above the Pacific, the resolute dawn hovered over the growing anomaly. Captain Nura Vance stood on the command deck, eyes hollow from sleepless nights. Feed from deep sonar? Coming through now. The hologram appeared, three-dimensional, impossible. A city made of bone and glass, and at its heart, a sphere identical to the one they'd seen on the grave of the Makers. Only this one was beating. The readings were clear. Organic mass, neural impulses, self-sustaining energy. It wasn't a relic. It was something alive. "It's waking up," whispered Nura. Imari's voice came through the comms from below the ocean's surface. "Captain, listen carefully. The black ship didn't come to destroy us. It came to contain this. Whatever the Makers left beneath Earth. It's what they feared most. Why bury it here? Why on our world?" Imari hesitated. "Because we're its descendants," the pulse came again. Louder this time. Every ship, every satellite, every implant, every heart seemed to skip a beat in unison. Then a sound filled the air, deep and melodic, like the song of a whale echoing through stone. It wasn't random. It carried meaning, and across the system, translators began to interpret it, return the inheritance, return the flesh. The cycle begins anew. The ocean split. From miles beneath the waves, something vast rose, bigger than mountains, older than language. A skeletal construct fused with living matter, its spine glowing like molten crystal. The water boiled around it as the first of its eyes opened, colossal golden orbs reflecting the stars. Not mechanical. Not divine. Something in between. A memory of what the Makers once were, and what they had feared becoming. On the moon, the black ship finally moved. Its hull unfolded like wings, thousands of fragments detaching, forming an orbiting barrier around Earth. Not to attack, to shield. It was preparing for war. Nura stared at the view from her bridge. "Is it protecting us?" Imari's voice broke through, quiet but certain. "No, Captain. It's protecting them from what's inside us." Beneath the Pacific, sensors overloaded. The creature, no, the monument, extended its limbs, breaking the ocean's surface. Lightning danced across its bones. The air filled with whispers in every tongue humanity had ever spoken, and some it hadn't. We are the echo. We are the end that made itself again. And deep within that sound, the world heard a heartbeat that wasn't Earth's. Something else had joined in. Dr. Imari fell to her knees, blood trickling from her nose as the frequencies reached lethal pitch. "It's merging," she gasped. "It's trying to rewrite." Static swallowed her transmission. When the signal cleared, the observatory feed showed only water, and a faint red glow beneath it. Whatever had risen was gone. Silence returned to the world. Then the black ship spoke, its voice resonating through every mind, every dream, every frequency. "The threshold has been crossed. The first gate has opened. Prepare yourselves." Captain Nura whispered the words that would become legend. "We woke up our gods, and now we have to survive them. The moon is bleeding," that was how the report began. No preamble. No protocol. Just those 4 words spoken by a voice too steady to belong to anyone sane. From every telescope on Earth, it was visible, a red shimmer running across the lunar surface, like molten veins glowing through the dust. And at the center of it, the black ship hovered, its shape fracturing into impossible geometries that pulsed in rhythm with the heartbeat coming from beneath the Pacific. At first, people thought it was a weapon. Then, as the glow spread into orbit, a halo of light that formed patterns no human could decipher, they realized it wasn't aimed at them. It was aimed outward, toward the deep black. Inside Fleet Command, panic had given way to grim order. Every ship was manned, every defense grid online, but none of it mattered. The black ship had grown larger, not by adding mass but by folding space around itself. Each fold revealed fragments of others like it, hundreds, thousands, half-formed silhouettes of ships not yet real. "It's creating a barrier," said Dr. Imari's replacement, a young physicist named Ellen Rowe. "A shield between us and whatever's coming," Admiral Chen frowned. "Coming from where?" Ellen hesitated, staring at the map of the stars. "From everywhere." On the resolute dawn, Captain Nura Vance watched the stars flicker. One by one, constellations began to shift, their positions subtly wrong. When the ship's AI calculated the data, the results chilled the bridge. The stars weren't moving. Space itself was being rewritten. "The gate," Nura whispered. "It's opening." Hours later, the first distortion appeared beyond Mars, a tear in the void, vast, circular, pulsing like a heartbeat. Inside it, colors humanity didn't have names for writhed and folded, as if reality itself were unsure what it was seeing. Communications flooded with noise and then cleared into a voice. "We remember the flesh that built the stars. We remember the betrayal. We return to reclaim what the makers denied." The translation came through the ship's AI, its tone shaking. "The endless," it said softly. "They've come home." Every telescope on Earth turned toward the gate, and what came through was not a fleet, not ships, but living space, clouds of light, shapes that defied measurement, creatures the size of continents, half matter, half thought. They drifted like whales in the black ocean of the void, their bodies carrying fragments of cities, ruins, and dying suns, and from each of them came a pulse, a signal that matched the one, buried in human DNA, the same song humanity had always carried, unknowingly within its blood. The black ship moved. First, its fragments, thousands of smaller vessels, and lit up, forming an array that surrounded Earth like a net of black suns. Energy surged across them, and for a moment, every human being on the planet felt it, a weight in their chest. Like the air had thickened, containment sequence initiated. "Do not interfere." The message wasn't spoken aloud. It appeared inside minds as though thought itself were being borrowed. On the ground, the skies burned. Auroras stretched across the equator, flickering red and gold. Oceans began to steam. The air trembled with sound that wasn't sound, a vibration that reached down into bone, and then silence. The gate shimmered, from it emerged a single shape, small compared to the others, but impossibly bright. It looked almost human, almost familiar. Nura stared at the sensors. "Magnify." The image focused. A figure stood in the void, wrapped in light. The same form as the woman who had come from the black ship, but not her. This one burned with cold fury, eyes like collapsing stars. "The makers are dust," she said. "Their echoes have broken the seal. The children of their error will join them," Nura whispered. "She's one of the endless," the black ship spoke again, its voice filling the system. "The gate must not reach Earth. The cycle cannot begin again." And with that, it moved, faster than light, faster than thought, colliding with the tear in space. For one instant, the universe itself screamed. Every human saw it, asleep or awake. The image of a ship of black fire ramming into a wound in reality, sealing it shut with its own existence. Then, nothing. The gate vanished. The black ship was gone. Silence returned. The sky calmed. For 3 days, the world believed it was over. But deep beneath the Pacific, the heartbeat didn't stop. It changed. And for the first time, it answered back, not in alien song, but in a human voice. "They are gone. Now it's our turn." Captain Nura stood at her viewport, the stars reflected in her eyes. She whispered, "What did we just unleash?" No one answered. Because somewhere under the waves, humanity's oldest inheritance was still waking. And this time, it spoke with our voice. It's not the ocean anymore. Commander Arlen Tave's voice cracked over the comms as the live feed came through. Pacific waters boiling, turning black, folding inward like ink sinking through paper. Where sea had once been, now stood a continent of glass and bone, pulsing faintly in rhythm with something deep below. The heart of the world had changed. For 3 days after the disappearance of the black ship, humanity held its breath. There were no more alien signals, no more gate, no more whispers from the dark, and then the dreams began. Every person on Earth, every child, soldier, scientist, hermit, dreamed the same dream. A voice, gentle, familiar, human. They built us to end death. They built us to forget, but memory always returns. Captain Nura Vance hadn't slept since the gate closed. The Resolute Dawn now hung in low orbit, half its systems offline from the shockwave. Below her, Earth shimmered with new patterns, rings of light spreading from the Pacific, glowing veins tracing across continents like circuits forming inside a living brain. The world itself was waking. Dr. Imari Leth's last message, recovered from the ocean relay, repeated endlessly. We are the continuation, not the mistake. The inheritance was never genes, it was memory. Every human carries the blueprint of what the makers became, and now it's remembering itself. At first, governments tried to suppress the panic, but it was too late. People were changing, not mutations, not physical. It was deeper. The first signs were synchronization, heartbeats matching across distances, thoughts completing each other's sentences, then shared vision. Groups of people began to see the same thing, the same black horizon, the same rising light. The same voice whispering, "You are the bridge." By the 5th day, the transformation reached orbit. Fleet ships reported strange phenomena, crew members finishing each other's commands before they were spoken, navigation systems reacting to unspoken intent. It wasn't infection. It wasn't telepathy. It was integration. The inheritance was activating. The dormant network built into the human mind, the same lattice the makers once used to shape suns and birth worlds, and the planet itself, alive now, aware, was the core of it. From the new land rising in the Pacific came light. Not destruction, creation. Pillars of crystalline matter stretched skyward, building themselves with elegance and precision, forming arcs and spires that defied gravity. Within hours, the first structures emerged, massive and silent, shining like obsidian glass under the storming sky. The same architecture seen in the ruins of the grave of the makers. But this time it wasn't ruin. It was rebirth. Admiral Chen stood in the command tower overlooking the ocean. "What are we looking at, Doctor?" Ellen Rowe swallowed hard, staring at the readings. Something building itself out of us. Our thoughts, our memories, it's using them as a blueprint. The black ship was holding it down. Now it's becoming what? Rowe turned, eyes wide, voice barely a whisper. Becoming us. At sunset, humanity changed. Across the world, the sky shimmered, and for one eternal moment, every person saw through every other's eyes. No secrets, no lies, just connection. It was overwhelming, terrifying, beautiful. Nura fell to her knees on the bridge, gasping, feeling the pulse of billions of minds merging with her own. She saw children playing in Nairobi, miners on Mars, monks in orbit around Titan, all feeling the same heartbeat, the same fear, the same hope, and beneath it all, the voice returned. The makers tried to silence what they could not control, but you never asked for permission. You reached into the dark and found yourselves. On the horizon, a shape formed, a shadow the size of mountains coalescing from light and memory. Not the black ship, but something born from it. A new vessel, growing from the ocean's heart, its hull alive with golden veins. The second dawn. And when it rose, every human on Earth felt its name as if they had spoken it together. Captain Nura stood before the viewport, eyes filled with tears. Is this what we were meant to be? No one answered, but she felt it, in every heartbeat around her, in every voice rising from the planet below. Humanity had become something new. Not gods, not machines, something in between, something that remembered. As the second dawn broke free from the ocean, a message pulsed through the stars faster than light, reaching the corners of the void where the endless once slept. The black ship is gone. The cycle is broken. Humanity endures. And far beyond the edge of known space where the ashes of the makers drifted, a single spark flickered. A whisper carried through time. Perhaps this time, they will do better. Nura watched the sunrise over a world reborn, no longer afraid, no longer small. We didn't ask for permission, she said softly. We never will. The new ship, dark, magnificent, alive, rose into the light. And for the first time in the history of the stars, the universe itself seemed to pause and listen.